In this episode of the Devlab series, we will use Ansible to build a Node.js development container, clone a Git repository, install its dependencies, build it, and overlay configuration files on it. Then we will fix a bug and send our code as a pull request to GitHub. Our example repository in this episode is Dashy. Dashy is a home-page dashboard, and I use it extensively in my dev lab. You can check its live demo and customize it to your likes. You can see its user showcase or watch this video by Appalard Adventures about it. I previously contributed 2 components to Dashy. One of them is a widget that shows a list of Proxmox containers and VMs. This widget has a bug in the sorting function. It sorts IDs as strings, which makes 1000 appear before 101. This is a default install of Dashy. I just overlaid this section here with the widget that we will be working on top of the default configuration of Dashy, which includes all these and this section here. Dashy is very flexible and you can customize it to your likes. It has, for example, support for material colors and icons. It has support for the Dracula colors and Nord colors if you want. So there are lots of configurations to Dashy, and you can also configure Dashy colors. From here, you can also look at the configurations and change the configurations live while you are working on it. So now we see that we have 2 sections. This is a widgets, and it has only one widget, that is the Proxmox list that I created for this demo. You see here that the Proxmox lists widget gets the configuration from this IP, which is our devlab. We use an API access token that I created with the name of Dashy and for the root user. And you can specify like multiple options for this widget. The problem we have is that, for example, you see this VM here, this LXC, it has the ID 1000. It comes before things that have ID 101, 102, as we have seen in Proxmox. So this is the Proxmox PVE that we are working on, and you see VM ID here comes last. And I wanted to implement the same behavior in Dashy. Let's start this now, and we refresh this. Now we see it working, so this shows that we are working live. This is the playbook that created the container we were looking at. And the first play in this playbook is familiar to us. We have used it in multiple times before. First, we purge the container if we need to, and then we create the container. The second play is also familiar. Since we are using a Debian container, we can run the base Debian role. Now, this role in this situation will give us 2 very important things, among others. It will install Git on the container, which is what we use to get the repository. And then it will create the user that we use, the dev user that we use to work inside this container. After that, we have a new role that I called NVM. This role will install NVM, the Node Version Manager, which is used to control what version of Node.js you want to install on your system. And Dashy has special requirements that we will mention in a bit. Notice that we are using the dev user to log into this role. So the Ansible user will be the dev user. Normally in the base Debian role, we allow Ansible to log into the container in its own role. So we need to allow Ansible to log into the container using the dev user, and we will see how to do that. Of course, we need to add this to the inventory, and we will see that now. So this is our inventory, and this is our Dashy dev, and don't forget to add it also to the base role, because now we can apply, if we change the base role, we can apply the change to all the containers that have the base role. Now we look at the NVM role. First, we install NVM, and we install it by cloning its repository at a specific version. This version is controlled by the defaults file, and the latest version as of now is this version. So we clone the NVM repository, and then for NVM to work correctly, we need to source this script under NVM into each login shell of the user that would use NVM. We add this line to the profile of that user so that every time the user logs, this line gets activated. NVM allows installing multiple versions of Node, and if you specify a major version, NVM will look for the minor version and the batch and will choose the latest of these. NVM then will use that version in the path, and we will use that path. So first, before we install the version, let's find out which is the latest version. So we ask NVM to look at the versions in its remote, and we give it the version that we have from our variable file. We register the result in this variable, and we fail when we don't have a version that matches what we want to install in the remote. Otherwise, we continue. If we have a version, we continue. What do? We save that version in a variable, a node resolved version, and we will use this later. And we generate the path that NVM will use so that we can use it also later in the role. Then we install Node.js, and we specify the resolved version that we got from NVM. Then we install Yarn after we installed Node.js. Now we can clone the repository. So if we need to clean up, to remove the folder that contains the repository, we remove it, we do clean up, and then we install the repository on the branch that we specify in the variable file, in the directory that we specify in the variable. If we need patches, we download the patches and we apply them later in the next command. Snippets, we use them to overlay files on top of the repository, files that we do not want to version control with the repository. We might version control in different systems. For example, if we want to add test data like a JSON file, if we want to add SQL dump file or a script that will initialize the repository, if we want to add, in our case, different configurations to what was provided in the repository, we can overlay them using the snippets. And for snippets, I use the snippets feature in GitLab. So once we have applied all the patches, if we have patches, and overlaid all our snippets, we can build the repository using the build commands that we get from the variable file. If we look at the variable file, we see for this container, I am choosing the VM ID 120. I'm calling it like this. Node.js is very memory efficient, so you need to give it enough memory for it to be efficient. I noticed that if you give Dashy container 2 GB, it will take a long time to build. If you give it 4 GB, it will be very smooth and it will build in less than 20 seconds. However, Dashy itself, not the build system, Dashy itself is static. It's all static files, so it does not require a huge memory to run. This is required for the development and if you want to build Dashy on the production machine. We give it the MAC address that follows our scheme, so with 120 as like 120 here, and this will give us the IP 120 from our router configuration. We add the Ansible public key to the public keys of the user. This is used by the base role. So the base role will allow Ansible to log in as the Devlab user. Then we specify the node version. Unfortunately, Dashy requires only version 16. Version 16 is now end of life, and we will talk about that later. This is the project repository, and I'm cloning it now from the main repository. I'm cloning it under Dashy in my home directory, in the dev user home directory. I'm requesting cleanup so that we start with a fresh install, and I'm working on the master branch. This comes from GitHub. I am applying a patch so that we can test patches. And I have also a script that overlays my configuration on top of Dashy's configuration on top of this file. The build commands are yarn and yarn dev, and now we are ready to start our Dashy container. When we run this playbook, we run it with recreate to recreate the container, and the playbook completed successfully, and you see that we have downloaded this batch and applied it. We downloaded it from GitHub and we applied the batch, and then we downloaded and applied the snippet, and we ran the build commands, and now we are ready to start Dashy. So let's go back to our development container. Now this has been reloaded and we are ready to start Dashy. This is VS Codium running inside the development machine, which is on the same bridge as the Devlab PVE, so it has access to the containers running on the Devlab PVE. This has IP90 as we designed it before. And you see I have created some configurations here so that I can access Dashy Dev using the remote virtual remote SSH connection. So we have the IP120 and we log in with user dev, and we should have our SSH key there. And these are for something that, for a problem that we will solve in a minute. And here you see that I am inside Dashy. I can run Dashy now. And Codium allows me to open it in the browser. So you see the problem that we are facing here. We have a problem that Dashy directly cannot access Proxmox, and we are unable to fetch the data. This is because on Proxmox we use a self-signed certificate. Proxmox created its own self-signed certificate authority certificate, and it's using it to sign its own certificate. Unfortunately, Node.js comes with certificates, with certificate authority certificates, all CA certificates compiled inside the binary. But there is a way to add to them. You cannot change them, but there is a way to add to them. And let's see that. This is our base Debian role. And you see I added a new task to it that copies two items, Devlab CA CRT and the Devlab CA PEM. We copy these from the files directory here. This is the PEM and CRT is binary. VS Code cannot open it. So we copy these files to the remote machine and then we can use them. Since this is not the default certificate, my CI certificate that we will create later in the series, we will create a CA and we will use this role task, to deploy the CA certificate to all our machines. But as of now, we use it only in the Node.js containers. So let's look at the NVM container, and here I have these tasks. We define this variable and we link to the CA as we copied it from the previous role. We tell Node.js to add this certificate to its trusted certificate authorities. We add that to the profile of every user in the container, and we need to become root. So we need to escalate our privileges. We use this task if we want to trust the certificate in the system. Right now, we trust the certificate only, we need to trust it only with Node.js. But if you need to trust it in the system, you can do that. And let's test trusting the certificate in the entire system. So now I need to recreate the container with the certificate enabled, and let's see what happens. Okay, so the build is complete now, and you see that we applied snippets, but we did not apply batches. I disabled the batch because I want to test this batch before applying it and after applying it. Another change I made is in the NVM role here, in the under tasks. I changed this code was wrong, so I changed it, and I think I still did not test it. I think it will work now. And let's start Dashy. Yarn start. So Dashy should be running now. And we see now we get a result from the host, from the Proxmox host, and we see the bug that we want to fix. So let's go and fix this bug. This bug is in a component under src components and then widgets. And here we see, sorry, we see the Proxmox widget. This is code that I contributed to Dashy. We go down until we see the arrow function. So now if we rebuild Dashy, we should be running now in the development mode with yarn dev in Dashy, but unfortunately that mode does not work well with the JavaScript reverse proxy that we use, with the JavaScript proxy that we use to bypass coarse issues when we call different servers. So we have to rebuild Dashy in production, in the production mode. So now I will start Dashy. Start. And if I refresh here, I see VM100 is back in the bottom, which means this might change solve the issue. So now I created a new branch and I committed this change to the new branch. So if you see, when I switch to the master branch, I don't have the change. I also created a new repository in my GitLab, in the Devlabs GitLab. This is a bare repository, and I now want to push the code to this repository. So if I do this, I get asked about my password, which means my public key was not recognized, although I have added the public key to the SSH config file, and it should be recognized by now. I also know that I added this to GitHub, to GitLab. If I look for SSH, my SSH-add -L to see if my identity is forwarded, although I'm asking this extension and SSH to forward the extension and to add my keys to the extension, I get no identity. So I need to add the SSH key manually. So I have added my identity, and if I do now this, I get that I have an identity saved. And if we look here, I break this. Okay, I need to log in with a new session. So if I close this and open a new session so that I get my identity shared, and we put this here. And now if I do SSH add -L in the new container, so I see that the identity, the key is shared, and I can commit from this machine, from this development machine, using the key that I have defined in GitLab. So let's try to commit again. And now the master branch is pushing, and we have pushed the master branch. So let's do the same with the fix widget branch. So now if we refresh here, we see Dashy code in our repository and we see the change that we applied. Now this we should do also in GitHub, but I wanted to do it in my GitLab to show you the issue with sharing the key. Now I have committed this change to my fork of Dashy, and I ran yarn lint, so no errors found. So we are good to go for a pull request. I created the pull request for Dashy, but unfortunately the pull request failed in building. The failure was in this task, unfurl links. And apparently it looks like the URL is like something is wrong with the integration. It's not with my pull request. I don't know what happened with them for failing like that. It's fine. This task, all it does is it expands the links in comments, and my links were already expanded. The links I sent are already expanded. Maybe that confused the maybe that confused it, or maybe if I open the links work. So this is the first link for my YouTube channel, and the second link is for my Medium page that includes all the articles in my related to the series. Anyway, we will continue. So what I will do now is I want to test the other pull request that we see, not in issues, in pull request. I want to test the jokes pull request. So if I check here, like it says that sometimes the second line is not deleted when refreshing, and if we look at the variable file, this is the variable file. So this is the pull request for the other pull request, and this is my pull request. But to test this other pull request, I need to go to the documentation of Dashy and get the code snippet. So if I go to the documentation and to the widget documentation, and here I look for joke. This is the joke widget. And if we go down a little bit, this is the example that I want to copy. So I want to add this to my snippet. And if I go to my GitHub, I look at the Devlab series snippet that I created earlier. This series, this repository does not have any code right now. But if I look here under code, I see snippets, and I see that I have a snippet. This is the snippet that deploys my Proxmox list. So let's edit this snippet. So we save changes and we continue. So now I can rebuild Dashy again. You see how much we build containers when you want to do proper development, and how Ansible is useful. The Dashy container is rebuilt again, and I have added my batch and activated the other batch so that I did a change here in this task because the previous command did not work and failed. So I had to change it again, and let's see the container. So we have a running container, and we see like by default we have two changes in these two components, and the third change in the repo is in the conf file, which is here. So, and this is the overlay that I added, and it includes the joke. So if we look at what we see now, this is what we see if I refresh. I have a different joke right now, and I see that automatically I got the component here. So to test that issue, we need to have like a two-line joke like this one. What regular expression, nice. Nice. We need to have a joke like this in two lines followed by one line. The prefix for you see now we had previously we had a prefix of two lines, and this is a one line, and the second line disappeared. Previously it did not disappear, and I noticed that multiple times. So I can say that this patch works, and I will confirm that in the pull request. We use Dashy in this episode as an example, but there is a very important reason why I selected Dashy to start with in building dev containers. Dashy is a fantastic solution. I like it very much. It's easy to work with in the browser. You can edit stuff from the browser, change colors, amazing. The UI features in Dashy are amazing. It is also easy to automate, as we have seen. And it is easy to extend with widgets, as we have seen. So these are widgets contributed by other people. I contributed this widget. I contributed also the search widget that I put in the top. You can put it wherever you like, but I put it in the top of my dashboard. It is easy to customize with themes, and you can create your own themes. I really like Dashy, and I use it extensively in my Devlab. However, Dashy is built on Node.js version 16, and that version of Node.js has reached its end of life. It reached the end of life in September 2023. Dashy is also built on version 2 of Vue.js, the JavaScript framework, which is like I admire a lot, and I use it every time I have the chance to use JavaScript, I use Vue.js. But unfortunately, Vue.js version 2 has reached end of life in December 31st, so like about 1 month. Unfortunately, although I like Dashi, I have to say that its technology stack is obsolete. Its technology stack, Node.js version 16 and Vue.js version 2 are obsolete. I checked the issue log of Dashi, and I did not find any upgrade plans. There is a project for Dashi 3, but right now it doesn't have anything in progress. The goal of my Devlab series is to highlight some amazing projects and to invite people, developers, to use them and to develop for them. Dashi is an amazing software project. Like the features you get out of the box are fantastic. And I hate to see this amazing project die or become obsolete because of its technology stack. I think Dashi as a project needs some help. And I as a user, I'd like to help. So I created this episode for that. But I'd love to see other people helping as well. I will say more about that in the future. Since we did a front-end container in this episode, in the next episode, we will do a back-end container. So I will do a LAMP container, probably WordPress or Drupal, or I'll see what I will find. I still did not start preparing for that. Then we will do more dev containers, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't know how many. We will do a few other dev containers, and then we will go back to the router series, and I will show you like some very interesting ideas about using Ansible and WireGuard. And we use the same ideas also for the firewall, for automating firewall configuration. And These are like, I am excited about working on these ideas, and I hope you will be as well. I have more episodes planned, and I have more ideas for YouTube planned. So please subscribe and follow my channel and visit my articles, and see you later.